Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share and subscribe. You can now follow me on Instagram, Movies TV Mad, X, and on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. David Zaslav believes that Warner Brothers in the past have underutilized DC and Harry Potter. So let's take a look at what this clown wants to do to utilize Harry Potter. Don't forget, Harry Potter made over $5 to $6 billion, including all 8 of its movie, via the theatrical model. This clown Zaslav, who has no scripted entertainment experience, wants to take a reboot of Harry Potter, which is insane. No Danny Radcliffe, no Emma Watson, no Rupert Grint. He's taking that away from us, right? But he wants to take it away from the medium, theatre, where it's made so much money, and trap it on Max, their streaming service. There's no way it can make as much money as it has theatrically on Max. He wants to make it more inclusive. He's bragging that it's going to be more accurate to J.K. Rowling's novels. Like fuck, right? They've already used that magic word, inclusion. What are we going to have? Harriet Potter? Are we going to have an Asian Harriet Potter? Is that right? Is Rupert Grint? Is Ron Weasley going to be a black man? What are we going to get here? Really? You're not going to make any money on a Harry Potter reboot because you're going to mess it up. And you're going to overutilize it. I would have accepted this shitty idea of a reboot, and it is a shitty idea. My dream was for them to wait until, the original cast were old enough to do more Harry Potter and continue that saga. That was the dream, right? This is what Disney tried to do with The Force Awakens, but they fucked it up. They didn't even have Luke, Han, and Leia in a scene together. But that's the plan. That should be the idea. But rebooting Harry Potter and trapping it on Max is a really bad idea. And it's proof that this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Now let's look at my beloved DC. He also says that DC has been underutilized in the past by Warner Brothers. There's no question about that, right? We've only had one cinematic universe, which was the DCEU, and we know what a mess the previous regime made of that. Before that, going back to Donner's 78 Superman the movie and beyond, there's always been trilogies and one-off movies, some of them better than the other, and some of them making money and some of them flopping. We know that DC has been underutilized over the years. But what's Zaslav's great plan to overutilize it? Because that's what he wants to do with Potter and DC. Overutilize them. He thinks he can make money via cinematic universes. First of all, people are bored of IPs and cinematic universes now. These reboots are not going to work. Cinematic universes are not going to appeal to audiences to subscribe to Max, like trapping Potter on Max. But let's look at DC. What is their big plan to overutilize? Well, their plan is apparently a 10-year plan, led by James Gunn. Interestingly, I didn't see him mention James Gunn as part of the plan. Interesting. So what's their plan? Is there a new plan? Is he still going with James Gunn? Who knows? There's been a lot of problems with James Gunn since he's come in. As I've told you many times, James Gunn wasn't really brought in for his genius as a writer-director. He was brought in as an influencer to sell these remaining movies. It was all the appointment of James Gunn, although publicly it seemed long-term. The point was that they felt that this was a very popular writer-director that could sell and improve these shitty DCEU movies. And they failed to do it. So what does James Gunn now do? What is his future? What does Zaslav make of James Gunn? He's failed to improve these movies. He's failed to make them successful. He's failed to influence these movies. So what is James Gunn's future? Because these are really interesting comments from David Zaslav to his shareholders. Very interesting indeed. And I'd love to see what happens in the future. Zaslav is a very flippant, reactive guy. He's no different to Emmerich. When something's not successful, when a decision doesn't work out, they go to the next decision. David Zaslav had people queuing up to run DC Studios. Now, people don't think that. People don't know that. But it's true. He just went to a bunch of people who didn't want the gig. He went to Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips to run DC Studios together. What a dream team that would have been. But also, I don't want filmmakers running DC Studios, especially, ones that maybe don't see DC like the fans do. Because it's all right to have the Batman franchise. You can do something outside of the comics there, that's fine. It's okay for Todd Phillips to do something outside of the comics and break canon for Joker. I'm fine with that. But when it comes to a cinematic universe, the general audience and hardcore DC Comics fans want the law respected, right? That's why the Snyderverse didn't work as a general audience cinematic universe, because it was breaking canon left, right and centre. Now, I'm all right with that. I thought what Zack did was very, very creative and exciting. But the hardcore fans didn't see it that way. That's why Zack's stuff should have been in a corner from the very beginning. Or you don't do it. So, is James Gunn the answer? We know he's a good writer-director. Whether you like him or not, he's a good writer-director. But is that enough for him to create an interesting, dynamic DC universe, a cinematic universe? Can he do it? You don't know the answer to that question, neither do I. But we do know he's failed to influence these movies. He's failed to make these movies better. And the question I'm asking on this video, what does Zaslav make of James Gunn now? What does Zaslav make of Peter Safran right now? A guy who was part of the Hamadaverse, the previous regime. Only a clown who has no experience of scripted entertainment would make decisions like this. Because anyone experienced, and he brought in Alan Holm, the titan who used to run Warner Brothers when we had the Lord of the Rings trilogy from Peter Jackson. Well, we had Harry Potter itself in movie theatres making green when they brought Christopher Nolan to do the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm surprised, as an advisor to David Zaslav, he didn't say to him, a cinematic universe, David, isn't going to work. I advise you to allow James Gunn to work on his Suicide Squad movies on Max, in a little corner, on his own, like he wanted to originally. Allow him that. Allow Matt Reeves to do his thing in his corner. Allow Todd Phillips to do his thing in another corner. And there is money in allowing Zack Snyder to do his thing in another corner. But what I would do as the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, I would have to reduce Zack's budget, because there isn't enough profitability in Zack's movies to allow him to spend the kind of money that he does. Now, if Zack was agreeable to make his movies come in on budget a little bit lower, I'd be, as a business, and I'm talking as a CEO and a business person, and I think if the DCEU from the beginning didn't spend as much money on their movies and Zack could still deliver something of what he wanted to, then, those movies would have been a lot more profitable, because Zack Snyder attracts a certain person to see his movies. It's all about logic. It's all about common sense. And logic tells you that this is not the time to launch an overutilized DC cinematic universe. Yes, in the past 20, 30 years, DC may have been underutilized, but overutilizing it isn't the answer. It just makes the situation a lot worse. We're looking at James Gunn. There's kind of a plan. There's been kind of a phase one of phase one, if you like. Gods and Monsters Part 1. Where's Gods and Monsters Part 2? Is this still happening? Have they changed their minds? the first place you'll find out what's happening, not on the successful platforms, here. Because I'm plugged into what's going on. And as soon as I know, you will know.